talkSPORT has arrived in Istanbul. You can see the Ataturk Stadium behind me, looking absolutely magnificent. Just been inside, and Alex Crook, it looks a picture in there.
Certainly does. It's going to be absolutely bouncing come Saturday. 75,000 people, very much the calm before the storm. You've got the Manchester City crest at one end, the Inter Milan crest at the other, and I think it's going to be a fantastic occasion live on talkSPORT.
Yeah, I mean, there are quirks with this stadium, but actually, once you get inside the stadium, it's absolutely magnificent. One of the finest in the world, and the atmosphere that's created is sensational. Now it's just up to the two sets of fans to deliver that on the night, and the players as well.
Yeah, and I think they will do that. Inter Milan bidding for their 4th European Cup. Manchester City, of course, bidding to win the giant Jughead Trophy for the first time. So there's going to be a bit of nervousness as well, because City heavy favourites. It's been suggested to me this week that if City were to lose, that would possibly be the biggest upset in the history of Champions League finals. I'm not sure I'd go quite that far, because Inter have that pedigree, having been down this road before. They've got match winners in Lautaro Martinez, who's bounced back from a really disappointing World Cup campaign. He's got 20 goals this season. And they've got Edin Dzeko, the City old boy. What a story it would be if he could stop his former club winning the treble.
You've named a couple of players there, but player for player, Man City are better.
Yes, they are. I think Onana genuinely is a world-class goalkeeper. We might see him in the Premier League in the not-too-distant future. Martinez, I think he's better than what we saw at the World Cup. But apart from that, you're right, player for player, they've got people like Mkhitaryan and Darmian, players who weren't cut out for the Premier League by the end of their stay. So man for man, City are better. And I think that the beauty about this Manchester City lineup, as opposed to previous seasons, there'll be no temptation from Pep Guardiola to tinker, because they slimmed the squad in the summer. They let the likes of Zinchenko and Gabriel Jesus and Raheem Sterling leave the building. They use fewer players in the Premier League than any other team, so you sort of know what Manchester City's 11 will be. Maybe the big talking point is who he plays at left back, Nathan Ake or Manuel Akanji. I think he'll probably go with Ake, who obviously only had a bit of a taste of it at Wembley last week. Kyle Walker has told us on talkSPORT he'll be fit, so no problem there. Phil Foden, the odd one out of this treble charge at the end of the season, he'll probably be on the bench again, but you can pretty much name the left back aside 10 of City's starting 11.
Yeah, quick one on Phil Foden, because he has had injuries. It's been a disrupted season for him, appendix in there as well. His numbers are actually pretty good. He's second top scorer in the Premier League.
Which is incredible, really, when you think it's been really disjointed since he had that appendix surgery after the last international break. But what a player to have coming off the bench. Riyad Mahrez, who's been linked with a move to Saudi Arabia this week. Who hasn't, you might ask? But he's probably going to start on the bench as well. So they've got so much strength in depth, City. And I think one of the themes of their relentless surge towards the Premier League and the FA Cup, they tend to hit the front early. I mean, they hit the front ridiculously early at Wembley last weekend, and I think they'll do that again. I think they'll take the game by the scruff of the neck. They could take it away from Inter Milan in the first half. I definitely think City will be ahead at the break.
Now, I've just flown in here from Prague, where I was at the stadium last night to witness West Ham United taking the Europa Conference League in dramatic fashion. You obviously watched the game as well, but you've just flown in from the UK. I actually think, given 24 hours to think about what happened in Prague last night, and congratulations to West Ham United and David Moyes and the players, fantastic achievement from them, I think. But I think that puts a little bit more pressure on City.
I know where you're coming from, because obviously one English team have upheld their part of the bargain. They were heavy favourites, West Ham, and they got the job done in dramatic circumstances. So yeah, maybe that does put the pressure on City. But I was in the tunnel at Wembley last week, and I saw on the pitch how emotional Pep Guardiola was, how much people like Erling Haaland, who's used to picking up silverware, was enjoying the moment. And then as the City players came back to their dressing room, Kyle Walker had his blue wig on. He was asking for music. They were swigging beers in the tunnel. They certainly didn't look like a group of players who were burdened by this expectation. Premier League winners, FA Cup winners. Can they match what Manchester United did in 1999? I think they're embracing the challenge. And it is worth a note as well, I was thinking about this on the flight over. When United won that treble in 99, it was the same season that City were playing in the third tier. The same season they came from behind to win that dramatic playoff final against Gillingham. Who knows if any of this would be happening if it wasn't for Nicky Weaver and Paul Dickov. And that just shows you what a journey Manchester City have been on. And you know what? For that reason, You speak to a Man City fan, they are pessimistic. They've had so many disappointments in the history of supporting this football club. They are taking nothing at all for granted.
I actually know an old school Man City fan who was at the Champions League final against Chelsea is refusing to come to this one because he thinks he's a bad luck omen.
Wow.
One final question is about Erling Haaland. You talk about, Paul Dickoff doing what he did against Gillingham at Wembley. You've got Erling Haaland, who's actually on a really bad run at the moment. I think it's worst run since he got to Manchester City. He's obviously got the goals to back him up. I think his legacy is intact already. But they really need him to come to the fore to avoid any shocks on Saturday here.
They do. I think he played okay at Wembley without being at his dazzling best, but he played a big part in the first goal, winning that flick on for Gundogan to volley in inside 13 seconds. So, listen, a drought by Erling Haaland standards is a normal season for most number 9s, but he isn't normal, is he? He's superhuman. He's the alien, the cyborg striker. I think he'll score in this final. He loves the Champions League. He had at one stage the ringtone, he maybe still has on his mobile phone. He'll come alive.
talkSPORT's chief football correspondent Alex Crook. We're here at the Ataturk Stadium. A couple of weeks ago, it was the end of the Premier League. Last Saturday, it was the FA Cup final for Manchester City. That's the double done. West Ham did their bit live on talkSPORT on Wednesday. Saturday night, Man City, Inter Milan, Ataturk Stadium in Istanbul, live on talkSPORT from 6.